Okay, we're going to get started with the last presentation.
I'll just start. Steve said just walk over on me, so.
Okay, here we go. Our last speaker for today is Maggie Salif from Pacific Gas and Electric. She is the Director of Enterprise and TSA Compliance. So Maggie will discuss how PG&E transformed its internal compliance program and partnered with WECC on mitigation work that helped improve their compliance posture.
Thanks, Jimmy. It's okay. Hey, everybody. As you heard, my name is Maggie Sala. I am the Director of Enterprise NERC and TSA Compliance for Pacific Gas and Electric. I'm sure some of you are going, wait a minute, I thought this was a NERC thing. What do you mean TSA? So in case you didn't know, TSA, it's that TSA, like the ones that you walked through and screened you as you were getting on your airplanes to come here if you flew. That federal agency also has jurisdiction over owners and operators of pipelines. So because PG&E is a combined utility, gas and electric, hence the name, TSA is also one of our regulators. After the Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack that I'm sure you all fondly heard about in 2021, TSA decided to put some, use its emergency power, which bells are ringing. I'm an attorney, so I think emergency power and I start to shake a little bit. But they used their emergency power to put some measures in place in order to enable, for our instances, owners and operators of gas pipelines to put some cybersecurity measures in place. So when you think about it and you think of how far along NERC has already helped us become as an electric utility industry, you can see that it makes sense that TSA and NERC should be together. You should do things the same as often as possible, regardless of what part of the company you're in when it comes to cybersecurity. So that explains how I took on TSA. Now I know that I am the only thing getting in the way of you all enjoying some adult beverages, some finger food, and doing one of the things that's great about an in-person event like this, which is having those hallway conversations with each other. So in that vein, I promise that I will not go long. And I also wanted to bribe you with some candy. So there are some bowls of chocolate and candy being passed around. Please feel free to help yourself. It is almost Halloween. We are big Halloween fans in my house. And so I figured, why wait for your kids, your grandkids to bring their candy home? You may as well have some Halloween candy now. So please feel free to help yourself. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Jimmy Klein, Maylee Cook, and Megan Naylor from WECC for all of their help when they helped me get ready for this. I also think it's been quite a fantastic day. I think it would be good of us all to give those folks who worked so hard to pull this workshop off, including previous presenters, a round of applause. I think it's been a really good day. I'm always impressed, which is saying something. So I prefer to not sit up here and lecture to you all. It just gives me like PTSD from being in school. So if you all have questions, please feel free to come up to the podium at any time. For those of you who are virtual, I'm sorry about the candy. And please feel free to pop something into the chat. I think Maylee and the ladies over there are monitoring. If I don't get a chance to answer your question while I'm here, I promise that I will answer your question. My email is really easy. It's my first name, maggie.sala@pge.com. Always feel free to email me if you want as well. I'm happy to talk at any time. So Now on to the main topic of today's event, and I'll try not to destroy this. There we go. So I am not a fan of reading off of slides. I think you all are smart, intelligent people that have a high reading comprehension. So I'm going to talk to you about some other things while you all keep your eyes busy. So like some of you here in the room, PG&E is a member of the CAISO. We are registered as a DP, a GO, a GOP, an RP, a TO, a TOP, and a TP. That's almost the full alphabet soup that you can get when you register with NERC. We are, let me see. Okay, we are only in one NERC region. Clearly that's WECC, right? That's why we're here. At PG&E, we have a really robust hydroelectric system. We also have a nuclear plant, Diablo, that you've probably heard of, that was going to be retired and now is not, thank goodness. We also have natural gas plants and battery-owned storage. So a little bit about me. I'm a native of the Midwest. I was born and raised in Ohio. I am not a fan of the Ohio State Buckeyes. I am a fan of the University of Michigan Wolverines. So yeah, I get it. I'm not a SEC. Like I get it. So for those of you who do enjoy college sports, I am an ardent fan of the Big Ten, although it's not really the Big Ten anymore. Things have changed quite a bit when it comes to conferences, which I can't say I'm really very delighted with. It's really weird to play a team on the West Coast when you're not on the West Coast, but it is what it is. And we can talk about that over cocktails later if you'd like. So I've been in the energy space since 2005, basically my whole career after finishing law school and passing the bar. I spent a year doing some nonprofit work and then made my way into the energy space. So the first position I had in the energy role was with the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada. In Nevada, utilities are still vertically integrated. So you own your generation, you own your distribution, you own your transmission. There are no markets. It is an absolutely great place to learn how the utility regulatory structure works. I think markets are complicated and it makes it hard on people. So I started that in 2005. My next role after that was back east in DC with the Office of the People's Counsel. OPC is the consumer advocate in the District of Columbia. Are folks here familiar with consumer advocates in their jurisdiction? Like, do you guys know what that is? Does anybody know? It's okay if you don't. It's totally okay. I want to make sure that I'm not leaving you hanging going, what is this lady talking about? She's crazy. So consumer advocate, the last time I looked, they exist in all 50 states as well as the District of Columbia. The consumer advocate gets involved in those cases before that state jurisdiction or DC, the Public Service Commission, on behalf typically of individual ratepayers and in some cases small business. So think about the thousands to millions of customers that you have. You don't want each customer intervening in your cases that you file, whether it's at FERC or whether it's something at your state commission. OPC, or a place like OPC, the consumer advocate, they represent that big pile of customers at these types of cases. So when I was in DC, I became the reliability expert for the office. When I was in DC, our network went down for 3 days, and that included FERC. So you can imagine the kind of pressure that we had at the time. Why are the lights going out? What the heck is going on? So I became the reliability expert, which was, honestly pretty cool. I mean, I liked it. The consumers liked it. It made them happy knowing what was happening. So that's what led me to learn about NERC. So I was in DC starting in 2008. So the blackout in the Northeast was in 2003. EPACT 2005 came out, which is obviously 2005. That was Congress telling FERC, you need to certify an electric reliability organization. That's NERC. That occurred in 2006, I think mid 2006. So fast forward 2 years, I was looking into reliability. Why the heck are we having all these outages all the time? What is going on? And that's how I learned about NERC. As I was trying to figure out, is it trees? Is it squirrels? Is it some sort of moisture and salt getting into cracked fibers that are, that are underneath the ground? That's when I was like, oh, what is happening here? This is really kind of neat. I understand how reliability works on the distribution system. It's got to be the same in transmission. It's just got to. So I was like, I want to learn more about that. And I took a position at CERC. So I was at the region for almost 4 years as senior counsel. And that's where I got my first taste of reliability standards, as well as understanding that it is very different at the transmission level than it is at the distribution level. The work isn't necessarily different, right? Reliability is reliability, but what you do about it and how you do it is very different. So the exposure at NERC was phenomenal. One of the things that I was lucky enough to witness was looking at the various different entities that were within NERC's jurisdiction and going, oh, that's a good compliance program. Oh, that one needs some help. And that's one of those things that WECC also does, right? It really takes digging in, though, to understand, especially if you haven't worked in the utility space before. Understanding how the standards affect the manner in which the work gets done is vital. It's so important, kind of like what BC Hydro was just talking about. Understanding that helps create healthy relationships between WECC and entities like us, interdepartmental, right? Because you've got departments that you depend upon to each play a role in meeting the standards, as well as amongst each other. So I was senior counsel at CERC for 4 years, and then I went in-house to American Electric Power, which is a big electric-only utility in the Midwest. At the time, AEP had 40,000 miles of transmission. That's a lot. It's a lot to make sure that those lines and all of those facilities that help that power run across those lines are compliant. Eventually, I led AEP's transmission NERC compliance and risk program. Yes, you should have alarms going off in your head. It was transmission's NERC compliance and risk program, not AEP's. So we'll get to that in the future. That's a big part of what WECC also helped PG&E with. So at the time, AEP was in 3 regions, reliability first, SPP, which sadly was dissolved. That particular portion went to MRO, as well as TRE. So for those of you who are in more than one region, I understand the challenges that can come with that. That is why it is so vitally important for you to be able to have open and honest conversations with your regulators. I worked on some policy work at AEP as well. There's a lot going on at FERC and in Congress, and they needed someone who could look at things from the transmission lens to make sure that the company was influencing in the best way that it could for what it needed. So I was at AEP for about 6 years, and then I decided to take an opportunity at PG&E to help build and mature their enterprise NERC compliance program. Part of that reason that opportunity was there was because of the work that PG&E and WECC were doing together on this mitigation assist. No, WECC did not recruit me. There was nothing bad happened, nothing illegal happened. This was just the outcome of working with the region. So I always kind of like to know my audience, and I apologize, Steve. I know you asked this question, but I was in the middle and I couldn't really see. So how many people here have been doing NERC work for less than a year? Okay. How many 5 years or less? Okay. And how many are old timers? And by that, I don't mean age, I mean experience. Okay, so there's a good variety. So I'll try my best to not talk in too much detail so that those of you who already know and have your feet wet aren't like, oh my God, I'm so bored. But I also want to give enough nuggets to help those folks who are newer to the field because it is a very niche type of thing and it can take a while to kind of learn. And so the more nuggets you can get from folks, that whole institutional knowledge that RF talked about, getting that on paper, having standard work, all of those things, having conversations like this are just going to help us get better. Okay, last slide. So in full transparency, I alluded to a second ago, I joined PG&E at the tail end of our mitigation assist partnership. So while I didn't live the experience, I know a lot of people that did. Some ground rules and basics. This is not a one-size-fits-all type of situation. You work with WECC to craft what you think will be the most beneficial to your NERC program and to your company. You can look at specific standards. You can look at specific requirements within those standards. You can look at programmatic issues that you may have concerns with. You can have WECC look at your culture, right? What's your culture of compliance like? You can also have them look at your overall program structure. At PG&E, we did both. WECC looked at our NERC program's organizational structure, as well as specific standards and requirements that we were having trouble with. And this was not a SIP or a 693. For those of you that don't know what 693 means, that's the order that came out that approved the operations and planning standards. So us old timers often call it 693 versus OMP. So we had WECC look at both sides of our house. How did the mitigation assist play a role in helping us turn our program around? Best practices. You've heard about it already from a few folks today. I'm going to repeat that. Regions like WECC are in a very unique situation. WECC is the one entity that is seeing what is happening across the entire Western Interconnect. That's kind of a big deal. So it has the ability to bring those best practices that it's seeing to the table to help you solution. No, WECC is not going to share information about entities that it should not. It is not about the entity where it saw best practices. It's about the best practices itself, okay? So I don't want you to think that anything like that is going to happen. It's not. It's about WECC saying, hey, we saw this work. Have you all thought about something like that? Because it's helpful, right? So, the one thing I don't want us to lose sight of is we ultimately at the entity know what will work best for our company based on however our company is set up, however it's structured, however it does its work. But entities are not always the greatest. It's sharing their dirty laundry. We often don't like to say if we got things wrong. Mitigating issues, especially if they're repeat issues, can also become extremely challenging. By mitigate, I don't mean remediate and get yourself back into compliance. I'm talking about preventing recurrence, right? That's the main thing. You want to get back up, but you want to prevent it from happening again. That can become super challenging over time if you keep having certain types of misses. So, we've gotten better. I think there are some entities that are very good at sharing, but the forums are limited still, in my opinion. You control through the filings that NERC makes every month at NERC, right? That's a lot of work. Sometimes you can get really good nuggets out of there. That's all OMP though. Remember, we heard earlier today from the panel, those SIP violations aren't getting filed anymore publicly. They're not even getting redacted and filed publicly. So learning from each other on the SIP side is even more challenging. You can see things, right? You can get permission to see what was filed, but it's not going to have the nitty gritty, dirty details that you might need in order to determine, is this going to work for me? So there's, I'd like to parlay some fears right now too. This is not a gotcha game. That is not the point of this. That is not what WECC wants. It is not what WECC is going to do. WECC wants us to be successful. If we're successful, WECC is successful, right? We're all in this together. So in that end, it's all about ensuring that the lights stay on for those customers who depend on our company services. That's really what this is about. I just want to put a little nugget out there for those of you who aren't lawyers. I want to make sure that you understand the importance of knowing the rules of procedure, right? The rules of procedure are what keep us in our lanes. And by us, I don't just mean companies like PG&E. I mean, it's for the regions and it's also for NERC. It's how we know the rules and the road that we're on. So if you don't know, there is a provision in the rules of procedure that we like to commonly refer to as the safe harbor provision. It's section 6.5 of Appendix 4C for those of you who geek out and like to look up things on the internet. So if something is discovered while you're working with WECC, okay, that's going to be handled under that provision. The way that I like to think about it is get yourself out of that space and get yourself into a violation that you've got. Let's think about FAC 8, right? Facility ratings. We all know that that's a sensitive subject. Let's say you have a violation that means you're going to have to scrub your entire system. That could mean years of work, depending on what the problem is and how big your system is. More than likely, that extent of condition is not going to occur before you file your self-report with WECC. You don't want to be sitting on a violation for 3 years and then say, here you go, I'm done. You're going to make that extent of condition a part of your mitigating activities as you do what you need to do to get better. Anything that happens under the mitigation assist is going to be treated the same way. Let's think about it. It's called a mitigation assist. More than likely, the standards and requirements that you're going to work with WECC on, you already have a self-report on the books for. So anything that you would find as you're working with WECC would be treated in the same manner as if it was found during an extent of condition. So hopefully that will make people feel a little bit more comfortable about taking something like this type of thing on. So best practices. Next topic, leadership attention. We just heard BC Hydro say they had the EVP say you're not going to have any more violations, figure it out. It's not always easy to get something like that done, right? So have any of you guys worked, or gals, sorry, any of you worked with external consultants before? Let me see. You got to. There's got to be more people that have worked with consultants in this place. Okay. So there is an executive that I had the privilege of working with when I was at AEP. He came from PG&E, so I feel like it's okay to mention him. I'm not going to use his name. He was very fond of saying something along the lines of, a person needs to hear something 8 times before it sinks in. Not 1, not 2, but 8. I actually believe there's something to that, having worked in compliance for as long as I have. So having different messengers use the same message can be extremely valuable when it comes to you trying to fix things that aren't working the way they should. Working with WECC on a mitigation assist is kind of like working with an external consultant. WECC can help message and bring attention to those challenges that you're facing. And let's be real, they can be challenges for all different kinds of reasons. Those issues that need executive support, right? Like project management, to get something pushed through the ranks. Things like organizational structure, accountability, issues that result in needing to completely rehaul how certain work might get done. Those are super huge lifts. And having someone else help you with that lift can be really, really valuable. So we've got best practices, we've got leadership attention. Another area that we are able to really leverage and help us push our program forward was enhanced culture of compliance. So I can tell you that the issues that PG&E was facing were not unique. I saw lots of entities at CERC have same or similar issues, organizational structures, silos, either between business units or between departments or between organizations, lack of ownership, super complex, highly matrixed organizations. Those are real problems that can make or break a compliance program. So another nugget for those of you who are newer to the field, sorry, give me a second. FERC has issued several policy statements over the years in terms of what it thinks a healthy, well-functioning compliance program and culture of compliance looks like. Its expectations for a robust compliance program. NERC and the regions took that, and that's what they use, that guidance, when they assess our company's program and culture of compliance. Some baseline attributes, policy changes over time. We all know that. We've all lived that outside of the NERC space, right? But there's some attributes that are just never going to change. They're always going to be expected. Think about independence, right? The doer can't be the checker. That's like the fox guarding the hen house. You have to have independence. But how you create that independence and put that independence in place can vary, right? The regions have also put out some documents. You had the guys up here talking about the most recent SIP themes. The one from 2018 also has, I think, some really good information in it that goes well beyond SIP to what you may want to think about when it comes to having a good, healthy culture of compliance. So similarly to best practices, you can have WECC come in and take a look at how things are going. WECC's continually assessing how we're doing, right? So they're up to date. They're seeing what's happening. Think about those processes where you really need to run it from the middle, right? It needs to be documented, it needs to be repeatable, and it probably needs to be scalable depending on what you're looking at. Some good examples, new and revised standards. I don't mean commenting and balloting. That's a part of new and revised standards. But I think the part that takes even more work and is even more challenging is how are you getting ready before that date becomes mandatory? What is it that the company needs to do to get ready? Internal controls, obviously. How you investigate, mitigate, and self-report. We were able to leverage what WECC brought to the table to help us in those areas that we knew we needed to drive from the middle, but we're having difficulty doing it. Yes, sometimes it's okay for transmission to do something different than generation. Absolutely. But should it be? Should it be done differently? Is that risky? Is it not risky? Is it better to have standard work that everyone follows? Again, what works at one entity may not work at yours, but we all have blinders. We all have them, no matter how much we want to think we don't. We do. So considering how others are doing things can help. And WECC is in a position to bring that to help us. So I've got best practices, leadership attention, culture, enhanced culture of compliance. internal controls assistance, and relationship building. As I imagine you all know, at least those of us who are old timers, NERC shifted to risk-based compliance in early 2015. We're almost 10 years in, y'all, right? I mean, we're almost a decade in, I think in February of this coming up year. Standing up a robust internal control program can be really challenging. It can be really hard. You can get a lot of people going, I don't really want to do that. And then you have to explain to them why they have to. WECC can assist in assessing your internal control program and help to figure out the best areas for which you should focus your finite resources, right? Our resources are finite. We need to be really thoughtful and careful in terms of how we use them, whether it's money or people or time or whatever. Working with WECC in this manner is also going to strengthen your relationship with WECC, right? Who doesn't want to have a good relationship with the regulator? I mean, it's kind of silly to not want that, right? So we're all stretched thin. Our budgets are shrinking. They're not increasing. And there's a ton happening in NERC, right? I have never seen so much movement in the standard space. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's a lot to keep up with, let alone be proactive about. So having the ability to have open, honest, robust conversations with the folks at WECC is vital. It's not just for you, it's also for WECC, right? Continuous improvement is something that we should all be striving for. And I know for a fact that the leadership and the folks at WECC take continuous improvement very, very seriously. This is important. We need to be agile as things are changing in our field. So I just want to reiterate that we all, us, the regions, NERC, we all have the same goal: safe, reliable, secure, affordable operations of the bulk power system. So those were some of the themes that WECC was able to help us with during our Mitigation Assist partnership. I'm so grateful that we were able to leverage what WECC brought to the table to make our program stronger. In fact, earlier this year, we were actually accepted into the self-logging program, which, considering where we started from, is a pretty fantastic feat. And a lot of that has to do with the help that we got from WECC. So, thanks for your time. I appreciate being here. I appreciate being, what am I, like a pinch hitter? If I was like in the World Series, right? Like I got to hit it out of the park. So I appreciate your attention. I hope you enjoyed the candy. And more importantly, please have fun tonight with each other and be safe getting home. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Anything online? Of course, sorry.
Is the aisle?
There
We go. All right, we're all ready. Sorry to keep you from beers. You've got two programs, SIP and TSA. How much of those were you able to merge in terms of skill sets, tool sets, this kind of thing?
Well, that's a good question. So right now, the measures are not nearly as detailed as the SIP standards. They're more generalization, right? Access management, patching. So there were some things that we were very good at doing on the electric side of the house that we were able to pick up and plop over to the gas side of the house. Because truth be told, we did not say, okay, this is happening on electric, therefore we're going to make this happen on gas. That is not how the company was doing things. So luckily we were able to take a lot of it and leverage it. So the people who work on the boxes and the equipment themselves, they're the same, whether they're working on electric or they're working on gas. So one of the risks and one of the things we had to be very careful about was not doing things differently so that people got confused did the wrong thing to the wrong assets, et cetera. So we worked really closely with the folks in IT and in cyber and in gas to get everybody to say, yep, we agree to patching this way. Yep, we already do my electronic access. We've got things in Active Directory. We've got password vaults. We're going to make sure we're using all of that. So it was a little bit of work, but compared to those poor gas utilities that had never done anything like this before, we were really, really ahead of the game. And it was nice because TSA is in the mode right now where I can't say that because it's being recorded. They want input from people, right? And so we were able to actually say, we think this is what a good document review should look like when you come in to audit us because of what we've done in the NERC space. And so that's, I think, been very helpful as well to get them up to speed.
Yeah, great presentation. So for this approach, the Mitigation Assist Partnership, was there any comments or talk about how this could help minimize like PNCs with potential monetary penalties?
You know, again, this was before my time. I don't think that was part of the discussion. I don't know, Kim or Deb, you guys were around then. Do you remember? It could be something I would think that WECC would be open to, but I don't want to speak on behalf of WECC. Do you guys remember? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Thanks.
I don't know if Jimmy,
We're,
I don't know what's happening.
we're checking on a question. Just a moment.
This must be a loaded question. This is a 20-part question.
How's that Halloween candy out there?
Yeah. Yeah, keep passing it around, keep sugaring up.
All right. That is it for questions.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
All right. That concludes our meetings